Hello, my name is Frederick Vallis. I'm one of the founders of Optmyzr. Thank you for joining today. We're going to take a look at the rule engine and some advanced use cases. So some of you may have been on the webinar we did last week, which was about a basic introduction to the rule engine. This time, we're going to just take a look at some very specific examples of how you can connect it with your data, weather data, and do some more interesting things. So this is going to be a fairly hands-on webinar where I'm going to go through a lot of different pieces to make this all work in a very advanced way. So, but before we jump into that, a little bit of housekeeping. So this is all being recorded. So the video will automatically get sent to everyone who is registered, whether you attended or not. I will also be putting the video on YouTube later today, so you'll be able to find it there. This is a session for you, so if you have any questions, please do ask them in the questions box, and I'll do my best to answer anything that comes up. In fact, if anyone wants to either use the questions box or the chat box to talk to me or tell me a little bit about what kind of advanced use cases you might be hoping to see or what kind of industries you're in, then I can try to make these examples as relevant as possible for everyone who's here today. Now, I might not be able to answer every specific question for everyone who's on the call, but if you do have a follow-up question, you want to follow up one-on-one, happy to do that. Just shoot an email to support@optmyzr.com and we'll do our best to help you. Now, the rule engine is a pro-level feature. It's available to pro-level customers and enterprise-level customers. If you're a regular customer or a light plan customer or a legacy customer, just go ahead and email that support team as well, and we can hook you up with a 2-week trial of the rule engine so you can see if that makes sense to use in your business. And then if you'd like to talk to me in person, I am going to be doing quite a bit of travel coming up here for a number of conferences. So HeroConf in Austin, be it AdWords Experience in Italy, Search Marketing Summit in Sydney, SMX, I'll be in London, and SMX Advanced in Seattle. And then, of course, if you just want to kind of keep up with my thoughts on the marketing and PPC industry, do take a look at my blog, which is on Search Engine Land. All right, so that's the housekeeping. Now, as far as the agenda, I'm going to start with a very basic example of why you would want to use a rule engine, and then we're going to jump into the Optmyzr interface, and I'm going to show you how to build rules using your own custom business data. We'll do a bid by weather example, and then we'll do an example where we bid by different attribution models and different conversion types. So let me make sure we don't have any questions, so we're all good. So, okay, so back to the presentation here. Okay, so the time that you might want to use a rule engine is to really facilitate a more advanced optimization. And so a typical advanced optimization might look something like this. You go into AdWords, you pull a bunch of reports for different date ranges, different scopes, maybe a keyword and campaign reports. But if you're more advanced, you also have some CRM data. You may have some data in Salesforce, or you might have some data from a third-party call tracking vendor. You might even want to take a look at the weather data. So is it sunny right now? Is it a certain temperature? You might want to integrate all of that in the decisions that you make. And so the next step in your process is now to consolidate all of these different data sources to get everything basically on a single row in an Excel sheet or a Google spreadsheet. So now for every keyword on one line, I've got the 7-day CPC, the 30-day CPC, my sales numbers from my CRM system, as well as the current weather in the campaign where that keyword is located. Okay, so by now I've spent 45 minutes doing all of this work manually, and now finally I can make a bid decision to maybe increase that bid. Okay, so that took me another 15 minutes to write some formulas, put them into the spreadsheet, and come out with my new bids. And now at this point, I have a spreadsheet of bids, but I may not even be able to put that directly into AdWords. Maybe now I still have to go through AdWords Editor or go and make changes some other way with a bulk upload. So all of that ends up taking a lot of time. And that's really why we built a rule engine, because a lot of these steps, like pulling the data, these are fairly automatable, right? If you tell us what data you need, we can go and fetch it. We can go and do the consolidation of it. And then you can go into Optmyzr and start using it. So here now I'm switching over to the Optmyzr interface. I'm going into my Sandbox account. So this is an account with no data that I just use for some testing. And by the way, if any of you don't have a Sandbox account, highly recommend it. So just set up an account, have a minimal budget or no budget at all. until Google shuts it down, and then just start up a new one. But then basically use this to test out what would happen, how your scripts would work, how your bid automations would work. And once you're happy with it, then you can put it into a production account, which is actually live and maybe working with real money from a customer that you have. But anyway, so I've gone into Optmyzr here. I'm in my Sandbox account, but we're going to go into the rule engine, which you can find right here. And I'm going to go to view and create my recipes. Okay, so the first thing that I said I was going to do is I was going to do a rule engine recipe using my own data. And remember last week we looked at how you would set up a new rule. But what we're going to do this time is we're going to add a recipe from scratch for this account, and we're going to connect it with my own business data. Now, I've already loaded up some business data, and I'm going to show you in a minute how you can easily do this for yourself. But we have some business data where I've got the campaign names, I've got the campaign IDs in a different column, and then I've put in some CRM data. So for example, this might have come from Salesforce, where I have my annual sales, my number of new customers driven by that campaign, and maybe the number of returns. If I'm doing e-commerce, maybe what percentage of goods from these campaigns actually get returned for a refund. So the key thing here is the campaign ID. That's really the critical field. That's what we need to be able to associate this to your AdWords data. And then any of the additional columns, that's really just whatever data you want to bring into the mix. So as you could imagine, these could be useful numbers to include in a bid management strategy, for example. So I've got this spreadsheet here. I'm going to copy that URL. And now we're going to do some bid management, right? So we're going to say maybe we want to manage bids for every ad group. Now, we've gone through this last week about adding custom variables. What we're doing in this case, though, is we're adding a spreadsheet. So I'm going to add my spreadsheet here, and then I'm going to copy and paste in the URL for that spreadsheet. It is the tab that has business data. So I'm going to grab that name right there, and I'm going to put that into the sheet name so that we're grabbing the correct data. And then I'm also saying what scope is this data for. So this is actually campaign level data. I could do campaign level, account level, or ad group level data because I'm doing ad group level bids. If I was doing product group bidding or keyword bidding, I could also import data down to those levels, down to the product group or the individual keyword. But here, because we have keyword data, that's what I'm going to bring in. And then I lost my spreadsheet there, unfortunately, so I'm going to copy that one more time. There we go. And now I'm going to upload that. Okay, so now it's giving me a little error message. It says you have to actually share this with a special secret Optmyzr account. So I need to go in and do the sharing of this data. So I'm just going to pop that in right there, do the sharing, authorize it, and then that's done. And now I can go back in here and hopefully it's going to link it. There we go. Okay, so what we've done now is we've pulled out the custom columns. So annual sales, campaign name, new customers, and returns. You will notice that corresponds to the headers that we've got here on the spreadsheet. So what I get to do now is I get to specify what type of data this is. And this is important because if we're going to do some sort of a comparison and we're going to say, are my returns greater than 10? Then it's important that we know that that's a numerical value, because if we treat that as a text string, then the number, you get into some weird cases where things are not working correctly, right? So we would take for each of these things, so annual sales, that's going to be numerical value. The campaign name, I actually don't care about. I'll just ignore that because we already have that directly from AdWords. The number of new customers, that's another number. And returns is also a number. Now, if any of these was a text field, I could also change that to text field. Okay, so at this point, I can then click go ahead and proceed. And now my data is linked. So now what I get to do is I get to build my conditions. And just like we showed last week, and just like in any basic rule engine setup, you get all your attributes, performance metrics, conversion metrics directly from AdWords. But if you go ahead and you change your scope to say, let's take a look at some campaign level data, notice that the spreadsheet columns now show up. So this is saying, if I'm looking at the campaign level data, these are the additional fields that we have. So if my new customers say is greater than 1,000, let's see what fields. So I put in the hundreds, right? So let's say that it was greater than 100. then I want to do something very simple in this case, like I'm just going to raise my bids, not complicate this too much. But now my rule is built. So now I'm using my spreadsheet data associated with those campaigns, and I can preview those suggestions. So now for those 2 campaigns where we have more than 100 new customers, we should come up with higher bids. So that would be 2 out of my 3 campaigns. So notice my Seattle campaign and my Bay Area campaign. These are the ones on the spreadsheet that had those higher numbers. The Boston one did not, so that one was not included. So Los Altos and Bay Area, that's actually, I changed the names on this, but this is actually my Bay Area campaign. Los Altos is based in the Bay Area. So that's why you get these changes. And of course, we're doing ad group level bid changes. So it's basically saying every ad group within this campaign is now getting the new bid. So it's going up by $1, so from $1 to $2. So it's a very basic example of the rule itself is not very sophisticated, but what's cool about this is I can now start using this data from my spreadsheet as part of what I'm doing in these rules. The other thing, you could actually use whatever data you have on the spreadsheet in the calculation of the bid. So rather than just simply increasing my bid by 1, I can go and pick some other things that I have in here. So I could take my conversion data and do some multiplication with that and do some more advanced things. So that's how all of that works. So if there are any questions on any of this, please do go ahead and ask them. I will be monitoring that. But now let me show you how we generated a spreadsheet like this, right? So in the most basic example, remember, we needed to have the campaign ID to be able to put some data next to that. Now, it's very easy to get that. You can simply go into AdWords. Here, I'm on the campaigns tab. I just need to do a download. And rather than doing a straight download, I'm going to go into more options. And when I have more options, I need to select the ID field. When that is included, that downloaded spreadsheet, that CSV file or Excel file is going to include the ID that connects the campaign name to the correct campaign inside of AdWords. And then I can start filling that out with my business data. So that's one way to achieve that. Now, we do have another script. This is scripts-based that you can use. So on our Optmyzr blog, we have a script to put any AdWords data in a spreadsheet. You can download that, and then you can use one of our pre-built queries to basically populate either a campaign level ID spreadsheet, ad group IDs, product group IDs, keyword IDs, along with some additional data. So you would take this AdWords script right here, you would copy and paste that, and you would want to go to your AdWords scripts page. So right there. So for any of you who haven't done scripts, you would simply go ahead, copy that code into a new script right there. I've already put it in here, so I'll show you this. So this is what that code would look like. So we got a number of queries. It tells me we're going to be populating a specific spreadsheet. So I can open it up so you can see what is getting populated here. So for example, here we've taken keyword level IDs, and we got some conversion type data based around the day of the week. So that is coming from that script. So the other thing then that you would do with the script typically is you would close this and you would put it on a schedule. So the beauty is that as the spreadsheet automatically gets updated, so here we would update this to run, say, on a schedule once a day. And then if we were also using the rule engine once a day, then the rule engine would also always be pulling the most fresh data because the Google spreadsheet has been refreshed on a daily basis. So that's how that works. Okay, so let me switch over now to a bidding by weather example. Okay, so what we have here is, again, a Google spreadsheet. So all of these examples I'm doing here today do work because we bring in data, outside data from outside of AdWords through a Google spreadsheet. So what I've done is I've taken those same campaigns that I had in my previous example, but I've added a column which is the zip code. Okay, and so that step I've done manually. So I've said for Boston, my reference zip code in the Boston area is going to be this one. For Los Altos, it's this zip code. And then using that, I've taken the Open Weather Map API, and I'm constructing a link to the correct page that will give me what the current weather conditions are in that location. So if I open that up, you can see here, this is the basic data that I get back from the weather API. So anything that's in this for this specific zip code, I can actually go and use. So anything from what is the visibility range to what is the current temperature, what's the current humidity, what's the cloud cover, clear sky in this case. So any of that can be brought in. And the way that we're doing that is using a function in a Google spreadsheet, which is import XML. And so we can say exactly what value to pull from that API result. Now, this may all sound pretty complicated, but this spreadsheet I'm going to put on a blog post a little bit later today so that you can just make a copy and basically just put in the correct zip codes for your campaigns, and then the rest of it will just work. One thing you will have to do is you will have to get your own Open Weather Map API key. It's very easy to get, doesn't cost anything. Just make sure you're within the terms and conditions of using it for commercial purposes. But get your API key, stick it into this field right there, and then that's it. Now, the weather data itself doesn't automatically get updated. So there's one more thing you'll have to do, and that's you'll have to go into the tool section. Now, this reference sample spreadsheet that I'm going to give you already includes the code here in the script editor. It's basically a function that does a refresh of the weather data. And this is tricky because the weather data gets pulled when you generate the spreadsheet, but it doesn't automatically get refreshed until you come back and manually open the sheet. Now, obviously, you don't want to have to go into each sheet on a daily basis just to pull the current weather data. So here's an automation that will pull that fresh weather data on a schedule that you define. So we have this function, it's already in there for you. The only thing you will need to do is click the clock icon right there, and you will need to add a trigger. You'll just choose the one function that we have. You'll tell us it's a time-driven function, and you tell us how often we should pull fresh weather data. Now, if you're doing bid management once a day, then pulling it every 12 hours is probably okay. But if you wanted to do something more frequent, obviously that's available as well. So, but once you save this, now it's automatically going to update the weather condition fields on that schedule that you've defined. Okay, so that's what we get right there. So now with all of this weather data, again, back to the example in the rule engine, what we would do is we would construct a new recipe. Now I've already pre-built this recipe. And because the way that we connect a spreadsheet is the same way that I've shown you before, right? So it's in the settings fields. I can go into the settings right here. This is the spreadsheet that I've just showed you. And here are the different fields that we have. And the ones that I care about are the current temperature, as well as the current weather condition. And this one I'm going to consider as a piece of text. The first one as a number. All of the other ones I'm simply going to ignore. But once I have this, now you can see that I can do conditions like what is the current weather condition. So this is at the campaign level. What is the current weather condition? And if that happens to be equal to light rain, then I want to take a certain action. And that certain action is to increase the bids by 10% and apply a label that says I've changed my bid because it was raining. And then I've built a secondary condition that says if it stops raining, right? And if my label hence was we already increased the bids because it was raining, but now it's no longer raining, then go ahead and reduce the bids again back to where they needed to be before. So based on this, I can also then preview what would happen in this case. So we'll give that a minute to think about it and take a look at what the current weather conditions are. So let's take a look. I believe there is light rain in Seattle. I believe those bids were already raised in this situation. So actually, but yeah, so bids when it rains. So Seattle, when it's raining, it is increasing those bids. Here in the Bay Area, I guess it was raining the last time that I ran the script. Now it's no longer raining. So we've matched the rule, reduce the bids when the rain has stopped, and we're decreasing that bid by the requested amount. So, so this is a really good way that we can just simply pull some weather data through an API that doesn't cost any money, and we're able to use that to make bid management decisions or to automate pausing stuff, enabling stuff, adding labels, etc. So, so that's one use case. So the final use case that I wanted to share with you is doing bid management by attribution basically by different types of conversions. So many of us probably track a tremendous number of different conversion types. Some of these conversions are more valuable than others. And as you manage your bids, you probably want to assign more weight to the more valuable conversion. So someone actually signing up or buying something is more valuable than someone just submitting an email address to be added to an email list. Now, signing up for the email list, that's still something you want to track. That's still valuable, but it's not worth quite as much. So how do you bring that data into the rule engine? So what I've done here is I've got a list of keywords. So these are ad group IDs and keyword IDs. And then what I've done is I've taken the different conversion types. So here we have signups and how many conversions happened. If I scroll through this, we also have some contact us. That's a different type of conversion. And we also have some paid signups. That's my third type of conversion. That's actually a little bit easier to see this before I've done the pivot. So here for each of these keywords, this is my raw AdWords data. So for the sign up conversion, I had one of them, and this was on Fridays. When it comes to paid signups on Saturday, again, I had one of them. Now, the trick here is to take this data, which is what you would get out of AdWords if you were enabling segments, and to get it into a format that actually works with the rule engine that we have. So what I've done is basically pivoted. So let's take a look here if I look for that value. So you notice that for each keyword, highlighted in green, I have multiple rows on the spreadsheet, and that's not compatible with the way that the rule engine works, because as you feed it in this data, it would only really take a look at the first time it sees that keyword, and that's the data that it would make available in the rule engine. The second time it sees that same keyword, it doesn't really do anything with that. So what I need to do is make sure there's only one instance of each keyword on the tab in the spreadsheet that I'm going to be using. So if I do the search here, you notice I've done a pivot and brought everything onto a single row. Now, to get all of the data from the different variations onto here, I've done another kind of combination of the conversion type along with the metric. And then as you notice, I've also done the same sort of thing where I've taken a look at what is the conversion by day of week. So that's the other segment that I've included, day of week. And then I've kind of converted that into on Wednesday for the metric all conversions for this particular keyword, that's how many we have. Okay, so now I've got all this data that I can actually start to use. Getting this data may sound really complicated, but we put up a free script. I'm going to put that in the email that we send to follow up on this so that you all have access to it. But on free AdWords scripts, I put a script up here, automatically put pivoted AdWords data in a spreadsheet. So what you would do again is you would grab that AdWords scripts code. You can basically change your list of attributes and segments that you care about. So if you just wanted to include conversion type name, I would get rid of day of week. You run that script, it'll populate your spreadsheet automatically. You put it on a schedule so that every day that spreadsheet is getting refreshed with the most current data. And now I can go back into Optmyzr. And in this case, I'm going to go into an account that does have a little bit of data. So we're going to go into a test account right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring in that spreadsheet of data. Okay, so let me just build a new recipe with it. Okay, so say that we wanted to do bid management for every keyword. The spreadsheet that we have in this case is this automatically generated one with this data right there. I want to make sure I'm looking at the correct tab. So going back here, I'm going to specify a sheet name. It has keyword level data. Then I'm going to grab that URL, going to put it into here, see if that's already connected. And so there it is. So now you see I have all of these different metrics that I can bring into the equation. So in this case, I might not care about the day of week ones. I just did that as an example, but I do want to consider maybe raising my bids when I have paid signups, and I'm going to use the all conversions metric. So that's the only one I'm going to bring in this case. I'm going to proceed, and then I'm going to add a condition. So once again, now I'm going to do, I want to raise the bids for a keyword when that keyword has some paid conversion. So that number is greater than 1, then I want to raise my bid. So just going to do a very simple increase it by 1. And once again, we're going to preview it. And now, rather than doing bid management based on the AdWords conversion metrics, it's actually looking at the conversion metrics that I fed in through that spreadsheet. So there's one keyword here, Optmyzr, misspelling of our name, that had that one conversion. And if I refer back to my spreadsheet to make sure that that was correct, here you go, there's that same keyword. And then in fact, if I look at the paid sign up, okay, keep scrolling. So right here is the paid sign up column. So you can see right here in column 15, that's the one that's matching, right? So it's doing the right thing. And now I'm using my business data, my conversion type data, my hour of week data to do some advanced bid management and rule engine stuff. So those are a couple of examples. I do realize there's kind of a lot of moving pieces in this, but hopefully this video that you'll get afterwards is going to keep you or enable you to do this yourselves. I'm also going to do that blog post later today that points out some of the scripts that I was using, some of the spreadsheets I was using, so that you can do this yourself. But hopefully this gets you thinking about sort of the possibilities of doing rule engine stuff where it's not just AdWords data, but it's also data that you have about your business or data about the world. So anything you can put into a spreadsheet, you can now basically use to improve your AdWords campaigns, and you don't really have to know how to code. So long as you can copy and paste a couple of scripts, you're basically good to go. So hope that was helpful. I'm going to wrap up the recording right here. But if anyone has questions, I will stick around and I'll be happy to answer those. And of course, you can email support@optmyzr.com if you'd prefer to follow up over email or in a one-on-one with me. So thanks for attending. Have a great rest of your Thursday.